I was saying, it's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we're here to dive into the fact that Jaguars edge rusher Travon Walker is reportedly available. We're going to dive into the report. Is it trustworthy? And of course, we have definitely got to dive into whether the Commanders should make the trade or not. How good is Travon Walker, especially as of late? What is the cost? Not only contract-wise, but trade value, draft pick wise as well. And then also the second half of the video will be centered around the fact that cornerback Chidobe Awuzie was cut by the Tennessee Titans, why the Commanders should go and sign him as well. But before we dive into everything, I also have a fun fact for you at the end of the video. And make sure you still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. Again, all of the videos that I promised are literally on the way. I even started cooking up a mock draft, and I'm really excited about that one because I went about it in a different way than I've ever done for a mock draft previously ever in the history of this channel. So stay tuned for that. Still working on the Eddie Goldman, still working on the Javon Kinlaw. They are on the way. And without further ado, let's go dive into the video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, I saw all of this start from a Jaguars page reporting that the Jaguars have opened offers for former #1 overall pick edge rusher Travon Walker per Draft Campbell. Now let's go to the original source. Walter Football's Draft Campbell, Charlie Campbell, said the marketplace for NFL pass rushers exploded in expense with the new contracts for Raiders defensive end Max Crosby and Browns defensive end Myles Garrett. And I also want to point out the fact that there's no coincidence that the cap space has jumped higher than what people expected, and now players are getting more money than people expected. Again, more cap space doesn't necessarily equal that you can get more players. It just means that the same exact players that you wanted are just going to ask for more money, which is why I've been trying to explain for the past couple of years now that when the cap space jumps higher than what people expect, teams with a lot of cap space like the Commanders gain way less relative value to the teams that have less cap space. It allows a lot of those teams down there at the bottom in cap space to potentially retain players that normally would have hit free agency, that maybe we could have gotten all kinds of things. Either way, continuing with Walter Football, he said Garrett became the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, even though now that's Jamar Chase, but I guess he reported this right before then. Those numbers could continue to grow as Bengals Trey Hendrickson, Cowboys Micah Parsons, and Lions Aiden Hutchinson, especially Micah. I know Micah Parsons is definitely going to break that. I'm not sure about Trey Hendrickson, and then Aiden Hutchinson has the talent. It's just the injury history. We'll see. But teams that were interested in trading for Crosby and Garrett can no longer pursue that route. But one under-the-radar name to consider is Jaguars defensive lineman Travon Walker. While sources in Jacksonville view Walker as a long-term piece of the roster, sources with the Jaguars say they would listen and consider offers for their young defensive linemen. So it's not like they're aggressively calling other people about, hey, are you willing to trade for our guy? Hey, please trade for our guy. We'll take this and that and things. Like, they're not the ones doing it, but apparently on their end, they're listening if anybody's asking. And then on top of all of that, the Jaguars just paid Josh Allen, their other top edge rusher, already just in 2024, this past year, with a 5-year, $150 million contract. So they may have already decided, hey, this is the edge rusher that we're prioritizing between the two to keep long term. Who knows though? But the Bengals somehow were able to keep both of their wide receivers really happy with big long term contracts. Maybe the Jaguars could do the same thing with their two edge rushers. Charlie Campbell even added in his statement that Jacksonville likes Walker. However, they do not feel that Walker is a dominant force like Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, or Aiden Hutchinson can be. One might expect that Walker will want to be paid like those guys though, and sources say the Jaguars would have to listen to offers and consider a trade package if it's brought to them in a package of deals, because Jacksonville feels that they have a lot of holes to fill on their roster and they need to add pieces to help get Trevor Lawrence turned around after a couple of disappointing seasons for the young franchise quarterback. So basically they may trade away Travon Walker so they can focus their cap space, all of their team acquisition capital on building around Trevor Lawrence and getting that offense back to where it needs to be. I mean, Christian Kirk had like a couple of, like, I guess I wouldn't even really say disappointing. It's disappointing compared to how much money he was making, but he was still better than I feel like people necessarily noticed. But then they just traded him to the Texans for a 7th round pick. So Brian Thomas turned out to be a huge hit at wide receiver, but they do need quite a bit of help. I mean, Brandon Sheriff's only getting older, and they haven't even brought him back yet. Like, they need offensive line help. I mean, outside of Brian Thomas and maybe like a running back or two, maybe a couple of pieces on the offensive line, they do need a lot of help to build around Trevor Lawrence, and they may have to sacrifice their former #1 overall pick, especially if they could get some good draft picks in return to help build around Trevor Lawrence and to free up a lot of cap space potentially, because we're going to dive into it really soon, but Travon Walker is not very expensive right now, but with him projected to try to get a contract like those other elite edge rushers, you know, just trading them away does save the Jaguars a lot of long-term money, which they can also use to help build around Trevor Lawrence as well. So they're probably looking towards the future like, man, we are not about to pay this guy this much money when we can not only save some cap space by trading them, but also get some draft picks in return. So now, Commanders wise, do we pivot from trading for Myles Garrett to trading for Trey Hendrickson and now to trading for Travon Walker? I mean, third strike you out, maybe, potentially, we'll see, because you know I'm always down to bring in a Georgia Bulldog talent, man. I'm gonna be honest, I have a little bias with this topic. I'm doing everything that I can to try to acquire as many Georgia Bulldogs as possible on the burgundy and gold. I mean, it's only right after the Eagles picked up another one of my Bulldogs just yesterday. They picked up Azeez Ojulari, who I wanted even outside of the fact that he used to wear the G. But I also just wanted the fact that, like, we lost Dante Fowler to the Cowboys. Can we get Azeez Ojulari maybe to replace him as like a dedicated pass rush specialist, third long type of guy, come in on obvious passing downs? Now we don't have him, so that's one Georgia Bulldog we just missed out on. I don't want to miss out on another one if Travon Walker is actually available, man. I mean, you see what the Eagles are doing with a bunch of Georgia Bulldogs. It's just no way that y'all aren't convinced at this point. I've been screaming for years, even before the Eagles just won this past Super Bowl, that you need to get as many Georgia Bulldogs from those great teams that we've had the past 5-8 years. Even the ones that didn't necessarily win championships, you need to get as many of those guys as possible, because at the very least, with the way that we were recruiting, #1 recruiting class after #1 recruiting class, even while Nick Saban was still doing what he did at Alabama, you could just tell at the very least we had some ridiculous freak athletes, some aliens all up and down those rosters, and there's a certain culture that these guys enter the NFL with, like a certain expectation of winning, just like a lot of Alabamas used to have coming into the NFL after leaving Nick Saban. And you see, Eagles just won that Super Bowl, and not only just won it, but in dominant fashion. And not only did the starting quarterback give all of the credit to the Georgia Bulldog players, the general manager, the genius behind the entire operation, also gave all of the credit to the Georgia Bulldog players. And not only just their talent, but also the culture and the mentality that they brought to the team. And so I don't see why the Commanders are avoiding every Georgia Bulldog possible. But going back to Travon Walker, after a disappointing rookie season in 2022, in 2023, he had a good overall season that was way better than his previous rookie season, but he also had a great 5-game run in that 2023 season. In that year, he had 10 sacks, tied for 16th out of the entire NFL, not bad. 4 straight games with a sack. Like, he had like a 5-game run, 4 games in a row with a sack, but even like the 5th game before or afterward, I can't remember it, where he was still really good. He just didn't actually record a sack. And then he also had 50 plus total tackles that season. And then just overall, the last 2 years, he's had 113 tackles and 20.5 sacks. And he became the second Jaguars player in franchise history with 2 straight seasons of 10 plus sacks. That's actually really crazy. Which takes me now to his 3rd season, this past 2024 season. Shouts out to Brett Coleman for pointing out the fact that Travon Walker had 64 pressures this past year with 11.5 sacks, 10.5 depending on where you look. But either way, somewhere in that range of double digits. He was top 10 in run stops among all edge rushers as well. I know Aiden Hutchinson ended up being a defensive player of the year caliber player, so everyone will talk about that comparison, because remember, Aiden Hutchinson went after Travon Walker, and there was the whole debate leading up to the draft. But I need people to understand that Walker has become a really good player in his own right, and I agree. people are overlooking him and kind of downplaying him right now because he may not necessarily be living up to #1 overall draft pick expectations, but he is still a really good player, and I truly believe he still has Pro Bowl potential. Again, to go out there and get double-digit sacks and also be top 10 in run stops as an edge rusher, he has virtually no weaknesses. There's still some rawness to his game, which is incredible because he's out there getting double-digit sacks, and you can still watch his tape and point to things like, oh man, if he can work on that, if he can fix these things, then he can become even better and even more productive, get to the point where he's getting like 13, 14 sacks a season. I truly believe he has that in him, and again, while at the same time being a really good run-stopping edge rusher as well. And if there were a coaching staff out of this entire NFL that could get that improvement and that development out of Travon Walker, it is us. But also, if you've noticed throughout his career, he's gotten better and better every season so far that he's been in the NFL. I'm willing to bet on the fact that he continues to go on that trajectory. Also, Travon Walker had 11 more pressures than TJ Watt this past season in 2024, and both played 17 games. Walker had 60, which was 15th out of the entire NFL, and TJ Watt had 49, which was 34th out of the entire NFL. Again, both of them played 17 games, and yet Travon Walker had 11 more pressures. Also, I want to point out the fact that he's only 24 years old. And let me really like put that into perspective for y'all. When I say he's 24 years old, he's literally the exact same age as Jaden Daniels. And like when I'm saying exact same age, I'm saying exact day and everything. Both are 24 years old and both have December 18th birthdays, both born in the year 2000, which is crazy. Like grown men were born in the year 2000 playing at the NFL level, playing at a high level in the NFL. Insane. But either way, and even on top of the age situation and the fact that Travon Walker is that young, he's only in his rookie deal. So he's only an $11 million cap hit in 2025 going into his 4th year of his rookie deal. Remember, he was a first round draft pick. So you also have a club option to pick up his 5th year if you really want to exercise that, which you're more than likely gonna do, or at the very least you're more than likely already planning on extending him before you even officially trade for him. Like say we just some crazy reason we trade for him later today or tomorrow or something like that, you're more than likely already gonna like have talked to Travon Walker and agreed to like a long-term contract extension already to go ahead and get that done. Then again, we didn't do that with Laramie Tunsil, so maybe we wouldn't do that with him, but I would just assume, especially with as much money as he's probably asking for, you may go ahead and have that done before you even officially agree on the trade. Like both of those trade terms and new contract will probably be announced in the same Adam Schefter tweet. I think they would just go hand in hand. And even as much as I wanted Ronnie Stanley in free agency, Travon Walker had some moments of bullying him when the Jaguars played the Ravens. Go look at those highlights. And then also, when we're talking about athletic freak, when we're talking about an absolute alien, this is literally why he was taken #1 overall. He didn't have a lot of production in college. Aiden Hutchinson had the production. Travon Walker had the potential. I mean, this is insane. A 9.99, y'all. 9.99. Y'all are seeing this, right? I mean, everything is green except for the weight. And he's gained a little bit of weight since he's been in the NFL. So that's not even something I'm worried about. Again, top 10 run stopping, edge setting edge rusher, which was our biggest weakness last year. Now, granted, we've added a bunch of guys that are good at that on this team in free agency so far this offseason, but neither of those guys really offer a lot of pass rush potential or especially pass rush production. Like, proven product of this guy can definitely get you double-digit sacks. Nobody we have right now on our roster could do that. We've improved mightily in the run defense category, but you have a Travon Walker that not only was top 10 in run defense out of all edge rushers in the NFL last year, but also gave you double-digit sacks at the same time. Elite speed, elite agility, and great explosion. You can't make a guy like this. You can't find a guy like this. This is a rare specimen of a human being. Going back to the Georgia Bulldog recruiting once Kirby Smart finally figured out what he was doing at Georgia. And you can really see the freakish athleticism when you see him actually playing well in coverage every now and then. While he's like at like 275, 280 pounds, I've seen highlights of him going in coverage and actually following a player step for step while they're running their route and even getting a pass breakup. And I still want to point out the fact that with him only being 24 years old and the fact that he's coming off of his best season so far, improving literally every year, this is the time to bet on his trajectory and future, man. He's not even in his prime yet. And it also reflects in the Pro Football Focus grades that he has over the past few years as well, that he constantly keeps improving. His rookie season was a 60.3, and then in 2023, he was far more productive, but Pro Football Focus disagreed with the fact that he improved and actually gave him a lower grade with a 53.9, and then in 2024, he jumped all the way up to a 68.2, with a 69.2 run defense grade and a 65.1 pass rush grade as well. And again, when it comes to pressures, he had 11 more than TJ Watt, and at the same time, he was top 10 in run stopping. You know, I don't usually agree with Pro Football Focus. I like to reference them to kind of give them, like you, an idea of what's going on, but I don't typically agree with them. I disagree with them more than I agree with them. And this is one of those times I definitely disagree with them, because the grades they gave him is criminal. Again, because with the run defense grade of a 69.2, that's nowhere near top 10, according to Pro Football Focus grades. And his pass rush grade at 65.1 was also nowhere near the top 10, according to Pro Football Focus grading. But advanced stats-wise, and even when you look at the tape, at times he flashes like a top 10 edge rusher in the entire NFL. And then on top of that, he's also really durable. I mean, he only played in 15 games, technically, his rookie season, technically started in 14 of them. And then since then, hasn't missed a single game. 2023, all 17 games started. 2024, all 17 games started as well. So he's so safe when it comes to the fact that he's top 10 in stopping the run, setting the edge, which is a major problem we had last year. He's also getting better and better, at least production-wise and efficiency-wise, as the year goes on, pass rushing-wise as well. And he also, his rookie season was terrible at stopping the run. The fact that he was top 10 by his third year shows, again, his trajectory. He's only getting better and better, and at the same time, he's very durable, and your availability is always your best ability. I love this guy as a potential pickup, but again, I can admit I'm biased. I'm a Georgia Bulldog die-hard fan. So y'all know where I stand, but, I mean, again, at the very least, you're not only replacing Dante Fowler's 10.5 sacks, because that's literally what Travon Walker got last year, but you're also getting a guy that can also stop the run really well. And I really want to emphasize that, because unlike Dante Fowler last year, who got 10.5 sacks, he was a huge liability against the run. You can keep Travon Walker on the field every snap possible unless he's tired, because he's good for any situation. 1st and 10, 3rd and 20, 4th and 1, no matter the situation, Travon Walker should be on the field as long as he's not absolutely exhausted. And then also I want to point out the fact that that would also give us like probably the most athletic defensive line out of the entire NFL. And you know, I'm very high on this coaching staff to not only develop guys to reach their ceilings or get as close to it as possible, but also trust Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. to get the most out of people with their scheme and play calling, and putting guys in the best positions and situations and matchups to succeed as much as possible. I mean, even if you don't want to take my word for it, like I mentioned a few weeks ago, Josh Norris and Hayden Hinks were doing a video breakdown of where they felt like the best landing spots for Myles Garrett to get traded to, and they both agreed, both neutral analysts, not Commanders reporters, not Commanders fans in any way, absolutely no bias against, towards, or for the Commanders in any way. They both agreed that Dan Quinn is the best defensive mind when it comes to not being lazy, and even when he has elite talent on his defense, he doesn't just rely on that elite talent to do elite things, just leaving them in one-on-one matchups and just go out there and figure it out. Just be elite, do you. Quinn's system does everything it can to get the most out of every single player on defense every single snap, from the worst player on defense to the best player on defense. So basically, if we were to somehow end up with Travon Walker, Josh Norris and Hayden Hinks would probably predict this. I agree, but again, if you don't want to take my word for it, this is coming from them. Go check out that video. They did like a whole landing spots for all most acquirable players, something like that. Like, it was Myles Garrett, it was a few other guys, maybe like Cooper Kupp and things like that. Listen to how they break down Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr.'s defense. And basically, if we were somehow to acquire Travon Walker, they would probably agree that we would probably get the best seasons out of him possible. I mean, those two even predicted that Myles Garrett would take a leap in stats if he would have joined the Commanders, even though he's already arguably the best defensive player out of the entire NFL. They felt like even if Myles Garrett got traded to the Commanders, he would have even better seasons with the Commanders than he's already had with the Cleveland Browns, winning Defensive Player of the Year. Now imagine what Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. could do with double aliens of not only Travon Walker, but Javon Kinlaw. I mean, I know y'all have heard a lot of people say it, but like, it's really true. There's only maybe 20, 30 people on planet Earth that are built like a Javon Kinlaw and that athletic, that can move like that at that size, that strong, all of that type of stuff. Like Greek goddess type of stuff. And Travon Walker is right there with him. I really wish Javon Kinlaw would have tested at the combine, because I'm telling y'all right now, y'all would be way more excited about us signing them in free agency if you could just see all of those greens on that relative athletic score. But now, moving on, what would a trade look like for a Travon Walker? Is Travon Walker even worth what he may potentially go for? Well, shouts out to Nick Merriam on Twitter, because he brings up a good point. He said Washington, first of all, should be interested in Travon Walker if he's available. And then also he points out the fact, and I agree, that price and trade comp are relevant to this discussion and should inversely correlate to his contract extension demands. And basically what he's saying is similar to what we were saying about Trey Hendrickson. If Travon Walker is willing to take like not that much money in a new contract extension, if he's not trying to break the bank and somehow even keep up with Max Crosby, let alone outpace Max Crosby or even Myles Garrett, with Max Crosby making $35 million a year, Myles Garrett making $40 million a year. Like, if he's not trying to catch up to those guys or outpace them and get paid even more, then I'm willing to give up a higher draft pick. But if he's trying to make the same money as those guys with nowhere near the production and experience, then I'm not giving up a first, not even a second, honestly. As much as I want Travon Walker, I'm not going that high for a guy that, as much as I love him, yeah, I want him real bad. But a second or a first, and it's not Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson, or Myles Garrett, and he wants to get paid like those guys, no. And so really the only way that a trade like this could make sense for us, especially depending on what he's asking for in another contract, is if you only have to give up a pick that doesn't have a very likely chance of even getting a new Travon Walker level talent in this draft. Because then, why not just go ahead and draft another Travon Walker who's younger and cheaper, not asking for a new contract, just now starting their NFL career, starting on a rookie deal and all of that type of stuff. You have at least 3-4 years ahead of what Travon Walker is contract-wise and having to pay that guy. So whatever we would have to give up for Travon Walker, it would have to be a draft pick less than what you could potentially get a Travon Walker if he was just a few years younger, because that few years younger matters a lot, especially when it comes to contracts. And then shouts out to the same Nick Merriam guy, because he brings up the point that if he wants $25 million, you could give up a first round pick. I can see that, especially 29th overall. We're not talking about high first round, and it's not very likely that you may end up with a Travon Walker type of guy 29th. There's a reason he went first overall, so I can see that. But if he wants north of 30 million, first round pick is whoo, that's a lot. You're asking for a lot. But this was brought up a while ago in like some type of New England Patriots type of conversation, and the quote went from somebody, I'm not even exactly sure who said it, but they said New England has always had an eye for a bargain, and Walker is exactly that. He's racked up 20.5 sacks and 44 quarterback hits over the last 2 seasons, and it wouldn't cost much to acquire him. And then that same person also said that the proposal for Walker was the Patriots' 3rd round pick in the upcoming draft, the 69th overall pick, and it wouldn't be great optics for the Jaguars, but it might be Jacksonville's only recourse if they get the sense that they won't be able to extend Walker ahead of free agency. Or the Jaguars may get desperate. They may just get to the point where, like, we know we can't extend them, and better than just letting them walk in free agency, how about we trade them for maybe like a 2nd round pick or something, rather than waiting to get like a 3rd round compensatory pick, which will come a year later and also a round later as well. And then also shouts out to Paul Booming. He said if Travon Walker was like the 10th overall pick instead of the 1st, I think he'd be way more appreciated. And I completely agree with that. As a Georgia Bulldog fan that's been rooting for him since he's hit the NFL, I completely agree. And then to take it even further on top of that, even if he was the exact same player with the exact same production, the Jaguars would probably be willing to trade him for less draft pick value to a team like the Commanders if he were taken 20th overall compared to the actual him that was drafted number 1 overall. Again, same exact player, same production, same potential, everything. Just simply because of the shame of trading away a former number 1 overall pick who's still on his rookie deal. I mean, like, the aesthetics and politics behind that, I think there would be a difference in what the Jaguars would be willing to accept. Same exact guy, same production, same everything, but just because they took him #1 overall, they probably feel a little guilty about that. They probably feel a little embarrassed, and they're probably going to ask for more just in return because of that. Now, moving on to the second half of the video, even though it's not going to last anywhere near as long as my boy Travon Walker, but still, should we sign Chidobe Awuzie? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, before we dive into why, yes. Adam Schefter reported back on March 15th, the Titans have released cornerback Chidobe Awuzie, who played in 8 games for the team in 2024, including 7 that he started. And then shouts out to Justin M_NFL because he brings up a good point. Wow, things obviously didn't go to plan for Chidobe Awuzie in 2024, but I did not foresee the Titans releasing him this offseason, especially with the little to be gained financially. He's not even costing them that much contract-wise. I'm not exactly sure why they were so serious on moving on from him. And then he also pointed out the fact that Mike Bergonzi is quickly moving on from another one of those Rand Carthon mistakes. You know, Rand Carthon gets a lot of rap, a lot of blame for like a lot of the Titans team decision-making issues and mistakes that they've made the past few years. And so you have Mike Bergani cutting another guy loose, like, yeah, we're not about to sit here and deal with these guys that guy brought in. Let's bring in my own type of guys. And so maybe Chidobe Awuzie is literally just a result of that, where he's not a bad player at all. And I'm gonna point to you why. But it's just like a regime change, and they just want to bring in their own guys. They don't want previous regime guys. Shouts out to Ben Standig, though. He pointed out the fact that Awuzie signed a 3-year, $36 million contract just last year, which is not very expensive for a cornerback of his caliber. Titans still paying him a good chunk of that change in 2025. Almost literally no cap savings. So his next team is likely getting a bargain. Injuries have been an issue over his career. We're going to dive into that. But, like, I mean, the Titans wanted him gone bad. They barely saved any money. It's not like they cut Chidobe Awuzie so they could sign somebody else. They barely saved much cap space. But they just really, really wanted him gone, I guess. But either way, going back to the injury issues, he's had those, man. I mean, his rookie season with Dallas in 2017, he only played in 10 games. 2018, he played in 15. And then in 2019, he played in 16. But then in 2020, he only played in 8. Then 2021, he kind of bounced back, played in 14. But that's still not all of them. Then in 2022, only 8. Then how about 2023? You know what I'm saying? Played in 15 games. And then 2024, only technically played in 8, started 7. So it's like an on and off. Ever since 2019, that man plays in almost all games in the season, then only plays in half. Then the next season, almost all, half. And it's been literally continuing on. So maybe odd number seasons like 2025, we're potentially going to get the most durable and healthy version of them. So there are definitely durability questions, though. I'm kind of joking with that whole superstition, but I mean, hey, there's at least the ceiling of when he actually is healthy and available, you're getting a really good player. Because Pro Football Focus has him graded as a 64.4 overall grade as recently as 2024, and all the way back in just a few years ago, 2021, he had an 83.3 overall grade. So back in 2021 with that 83.3 overall grade, in 2025, that would have had him ranked as the 3rd best quarterback in the entire NFL. Cornerback, my fault. But the 3rd best corner in the entire NFL. And also, he had an 84.2 coverage grade, which would have been tied for 3rd in the NFL this past season as well. So again, I don't necessarily agree with Pro Football Focus. I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't think he was that great in 2021, honestly. I think he was really good, but I don't think he was top 3 corner level in 2021. But I also don't feel like how they graded him most recently in 2024, even with the injuries, he was as bad as a 64.4 overall grade, which is the most recent version of him. I think he's somewhere in the 70s. Pretty much that's just who he is, and that's better than what we have. We're going to talk about that very soon because we're going to compare him to the Commanders corners that we currently have on roster. But again, comparing them to his most recent self, to make it fair, we're talking about 2024 compared to current Commanders. Chidobe Awuzie, like I mentioned earlier, had a 64.4 overall grade. This past season in 2024, I want to emphasize this is not years ago, which was graded higher than every corner currently on our roster except for Mike Sanderstill, and it was only by less than 2 points that Mike Sanderstill had him beat. And when I say 2024 Awuzie was graded higher than any other Commanders corner currently on the team, I'm including Marshall Lattimore, recently signed Jonathan Jones, and recently re-signed Noah Benogany. And that was considered a down year for him. I would agree, but Pro Football Focus, I feel like, took it a little too far. But they also felt like that was a down year for him. But at the same time, in that same most recent 2024 season, Pro Football Focus felt like he deserved an 80.4 run defense grade, which is at least 14 points higher than any other current Commanders corner, and that's including Mike Sainristil this time. So this guy, at the very least, you're getting a really good run-stopping corner, and you know Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. are not playing about stopping the run. First of all, with the fact that we were dead last at stopping the run last year, and just by they're showing you with their free agency moves how many run stoppers we've added in free agency. Not only just the defensive line with like 5 of them and like 4 more re-signings, but also the safety group. Will Harris, elite run stopping safety, arguably. Then Jonathan Jones, a really good run stopping corner. I mean, Awuzie is literally the type of corner that Dan Quinn is always looking for to add to his defense. And then on top of that, I mean, we're going to talk about the fact that he's 29 very soon, but this is still a freak athlete, technically. I mean, at 29 years old, he's probably going towards the end of his prime, but coming out of the draft in 2017, he had a 9.64 relative athletic score, which was ranked 47th out of 1,292. That's 1,292 corners between 1987 and 2017 to enter the draft. I mean, he had the weight. He didn't have great height, but he had great weight at 202 pounds. It still ran a 4.43, which was great. And then he had good explosion, good agility, and all of that was enough for him to have a 9.64 relative athletic score. And again, I don't feel like 29 years old is very old. I think, now granted, he does need to have a fully healthy season. And I also feel like that this defensive coaching staff, if any of them could have this guy right back on track. I mean, he could probably have the best season of his career with this coaching staff, man. And I'm not going to lie, the reason that I really want Chidobe Awuzie is because, especially if you don't trade for Travon Walker, right now we're super on track to take edge rusher in the first round and then running back in the second round. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I feel like those are our biggest 2 needs right now, especially if you could just go ahead and get a Chidobe Awuzie at corner. I'm fine with him playing corner, maybe even arguably starting at outside corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore for us this year. But like, there's no Chidobe Awuzie equivalent level of talent available to sign as an edge rusher right now, to sign as a running back right now. So you get edge rusher and running back in the draft. Chidobe Awuzie is just sitting there available right now at corner. So I feel like that's the best way to maximize value. You get the corner that you can in free agency, and then the only way to address edge rusher, unless you're trading for somebody or running back right now, or to get them in the draft. That's the best combination of how you can have the best team possible going into 2025, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and upgrade our cornerback group with a guy that could potentially start, I mean, over like what, a 4th round pick or later that you could potentially spend on corner, with the fact that, again, we got to go edge first, running back 2nd round, and then we don't have a 3rd round pick. So again, I wouldn't mind Lattimore on one side on the outside, Awuzie on the other outside spot, Sarah still in the slot, and then you have Jonathan Jones and Noah Benogany as your depth and rotation. That's a really good cornerback group. That's at least top half of the NFL cornerback group, until we could take a corner really high in the 1st round, like level high, maybe in like the 2026 draft. I mean, at the very least, when healthy, Chidobe Awuzie is way better than St. Juice and Michael Davis were last year. So at the very least, our cornerback group is easily better than it was last year. Maybe it's not light years better like some of y'all may have hoped if we could have gotten like a Javarius Ward or maybe a Byron Murphy. But Chidobe Awuzie is like right under those guys, or easily. Like if I had like a top ranking of like my top corners available and Chidobe Awuzie was cut by the Titans a long time ago, he would have been in that tier right like below or right at Byron Murphy, maybe under Javarius Ward. But I think people are really sleep on how good Chidobe Awuzie is, and not only how good he is, but how great of a fit he is. And also, again, with the crop of talent available in the draft, where are you going to get a starting corner? Chidobe Awuzie in free agency is your best bet right now, honestly, because again, edge rusher and running back are bigger needs, unless you just want to go ahead and take corner with our 1st or 2nd round pick. And then where are you going to get a pass rushing edge rusher this offseason? Where are you going to get a home hitting running back if you don't take one in the 2nd round? So that's just me personally. I say we definitely go sign this guy for sure. And then with all of the money that he's still getting paid from the Titans, he'll probably come here for really cheap if we want him. And again, with as much as of like a Dan Quinn Joe Jr. type of guy he is, like he fits them so well. If we don't get him, it's because Adam Peters didn't give it the green light. Maybe he's asking for too much money. Maybe Brandon Sawson couldn't finesse the contract. But I'm pretty sure, I'm confident in saying that it will not be because Dan Quinn and Joe Jr. don't want him. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Really appreciate y'all for supporting the videos and everything. Make sure you leave a like before you leave this video. And also, man, if you made it this far in the video, I salute you, man. This video ended up being longer than I expected, like nearly 40 minutes long. I'm 38 minutes into recording, and as promised, I have the fun fact for you. And it's the daily fun fact / trivia question. In his 10 seasons, 2000 to 2009, as Washington's primary starter at left tackle, Chris Samuels made the Pro Bowl 6 times. That's so good to hear. I mean, I feel like, again, we got the Trent Williams fact a couple of days ago. Now we have the Chris Samuels fact, and I love it because we just traded for Laramie Tunsil, who's easily our best tackle since Trent Williams, who was by far our best tackle since Chris Samuels. So now we finally have like our version of those guys, arguably, in Laramie Tunsil again. So it's good to be back to the burgundy and gold having an elite left tackle on their side. It feels good, man. And then now we finally have the elite quarterback to go with it. Man, this is the highest potential I've ever seen from a burgundy and gold team since I've been alive, so I'm excited, man. But either way, let me know how you feel about it in the comment section with everything. Of course, like Travon Walker. How do you feel about Chidobe Awuzie? What would you be willing to give up for Travon Walker? Like at the highest draft pick wise and the highest annual contract wise, how much are you willing to pay him per year? What are like the highest you would go as far as Travon Walker goes? And then also Chidobe Awuzie, are you down to sign up? I'm pretty sure he's very cheap. Would you be willing to take that risk with all of the injuries that he's had? I feel like you definitely can afford to, because at the very least, we have solid cornerback depth with Jonathan Jones. We brought back Noah Benogany, Mike Sanderson, and Lattimore as starters. So even if Chidobe Awuzie gets hurt, you're fine. You're still better than last year. You go from St. Juice and Michael Davis to Jonathan Jones. That's already better. And then even if Chidobe Awuzie is hurt, that's still all right. But let alone if Chidobe Awuzie is healthy now, way better cornerback group than we ever had last year. Arguably one of the best cornerback groups we've had in a long time, I feel like, but that's just me. Let me know if y'all agree or disagree with that in the comment section, and of course, let me know why. And of course, make sure you leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.